except for the rows of stones, this is not a typical cemetery.
Inviting and welcoming are not words you usually use to describe a cemetery, but that's exactly what this place is.
This is not a place where somebody comes and is buried and that's the end of it. The story continues when the families come here and visit and walk the grounds.
We get graded all the way down to the height of our grass and how our grass looks. We have by far one of the best veteran cemeteries in the nation here in New Hampshire. I want it to always be that way because it's a reflection upon our veterans and their families. It's a reflection upon the state of New Hampshire and the nation as to how we take care of our veterans.
If a young person was asked why it's important to have a New Hampshire State Veterans Cemetery, I would just ask them to come and read the grave markers and take a minute and read the 20 points of history that we have around the circle of flags and meander through the walkway and read some of the monuments and just think about the people in the past that provided your freedom.
A teacher out of Chichester came up and asked if she could take some photos and could she do a little bit more. She did some photos, she did a syllabus, and that's when it's like, wow, we've really got more of a treasure here than I had originally thought.
The vision that came out of the early concepts came to be known as the 20 Points of History, and the idea here is that they move the classroom around in an experiential way and read those stories, discuss those stories, in the context of people being literally buried feet from where they are.
The Memorial Walkway is an area set aside that has all sorts of different monuments that families have had created or organizations have had created.
They just had a basic idea of utilizing that small patch of forest behind the administration building as a place where they could put monuments back there that would not be part of the main cemetery and distract from the cemetery, but at the same time give people a place to go and reflect. And you realize in looking at them all at how many different backgrounds and cultures of people contributed to the military service of this country. And I think that's really what those monuments represent, not just all the different periods of war, but who went.
What I do now is I have them find specific information about the 20 points of history, but when they go down the walkway, I have them reflect on what was most powerful to them and why, so that they have more ownership of what is of value in that walkway to them, what has personally struck them. They do have to find specific people and go to those graves. Kids have said that that many times is the most powerful thing for them because they've made a personal connection whether or not they knew that person. They just feel like they are able to go and almost say thank you to that veteran by acknowledging them at their gravestone.
When students, regardless of the age, visit the cemetery, I hope that they take away that those who served made a difference. And hopefully they take away some curiosity when they get home to perhaps ask, were there veterans in our family that they don't know about, that the conversations have never come up before, and to learn a little bit more about some family history that they may not know about before it's too late.
It teaches them about family. They may have grandparents or great-grandparents who were buried here. It shows them the connection. And it shows the cost of war, the real cost of war. And it's a lesson they need to learn if in the future we can ever hope to have at least one generation who didn't have to go to war.
My younger brother was funny and he was complicated.
Mike was, if anything, playful, mischievous. Like there was a time he trapped me in a sleeping bag and rode me down a flight of stairs like a toboggan.
He had personality for miles and miles and miles.
He was the middle child, but the oldest boy. Had a killer smile. He was an all-around good kid.
My brother died on March 22nd, 2009, and he saved every one of his squad mates except for one. He stepped in an IED and lost a leg and some fingers and suffered some mortal wounds. But nobody had any idea of how injured he was.
He refused to be removed from the battlefield until after all of his men were taken away and made sure they were all okay.
He was calm and cool and collected as he normally was, and he made sure that every last one of them was going home. He was not leaving until they were all out, and he wanted to make sure they all made it home, and he did that. So I'm very proud of him for that.
He's actually buried over by the gazebo. It just kind of came naturally. We never really knew what his wishes were, and it just kind of seemed the right thing to do. Having a place like this has made it easier to focus. I have a place where I can come and still hang with my brother, is what a lot of it boils down to for me. I can come and I can joke, I can come and talk with him about things that I'm going through. Without this cemetery, I have to say that it would be a lot harder, I think, to move forward. This cemetery really did help with the healing process for me and my family.
It is a place I come when I am sad and I miss him. It is a place I come to tell him good news. It's a place we come to celebrate his birthday or mourn his death. It is a place I sometimes come and just walk around for the peace and quiet of it. It's beautiful and calming. And when you walk through the grounds, you almost like release a deep breath. It's exactly where I think my brother should be. In the woods, in New Hampshire, where he's from.
When veterans actually were in the military, they're used to high standards. They train to high standards. So when they walk onto a piece of property that comes at the highest standards, they feel at home. George Washington was supposed to have said, "The willingness with which our young people to serve in any war, no matter how justified, will be determined on how they see veterans of earlier wars are treated and respected by this country." If we can't take care of those veterans all the way up till their last day, why would anybody want to wear this uniform?
When we serve, we take that oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That really, in my mind, is a bilateral contract. We have to be able to take care of veterans in a way that they don't always recognize. And I think the cemetery is one aspect of that they don't always think about up front, but realize that when their time comes and they're getting ready to make those plans, that they have a place that they can go. And I think for some of the relatives even, that's the first time that they've ever seen a ceremony like that. Just kind of hits them that their uncle, their grandfather, their father, or whatever the case might be, how important their service was. We convey that message to the family that your loved one is deceased, but we honor their service here. Not just now, but we honor it every day.
I think it's most important that the spouses be involved because they were the ones that had to keep the home fires burning while the service member was not around.
I just recently had my wife buried there, Patricia. I know that's where I was going, and she just was taken by it. What a beautiful place. So clean, and everything was so bright. She just kept going on and on. I says, yeah, I kind of like it.
We're all part of a club that none of us really wanted to join. And we know what the other families are feeling what they're thinking. There's a kind of unspoken bond. And so, yes, getting together and doing all of these things, it is helpful to the families.
It's almost like a community thing where people come and they celebrate instead of mourn, which I like. I like that idea much better. And so you see people laughing and joking and walking. It's not empty here. It's full of life. There's life here.
This is a real place of connection. Connection to history, connection to the past, but also connection to the future. It's almost like it should have been here from the very beginning.
Family members feel invited back to the cemetery. They feel warm. They feel like there's open arms to come back and visit their loved one.
We've had friends visit from out of state who have said this is the most beautiful veteran cemetery they've been to. I take a certain amount of pride in that. That's New Hampshire. You know, that's what we do. We take care of our veterans.
Some of those people who are buried there, probably like 18, 19 years old, 20, 21, they didn't really have much of a life. You know? I'm 71 years old. You know, thanks to them, we should all be very, very grateful to every one of them people who are buried there.
What I want for when people come to the cemetery, at least for the first time, is to realize that this is not just a place for the dead, but for the living.